And so just for me through that period in time, as I started writing, like the thoughts became clearer. The anxiety, and I would say like I was in a state of depression. When I look back, when I hear, I didn't like at that time, like I never grew up like, hearing about depression or anxiety. Like that's not a thing like that people really talk about. And the anxiety, depression is, it's hard. It's very like, if people are depressed and people are anxious, it's it's not common. It's not that people don't, it doesn't exist in the sense that the Western culture talks about it. But in certain communities, in certain places, the things that people value are different. For example, like people in the West tend to focus more on success, tend to focus more on financial gain, financial success, and making more money. Not because you just want to be greedy and make money, but because there are bills to pay, there are costs that need to be paid, covered, and the bills will come knocking. They won't go away, and people are in debt. So these are things that cause frustration and depression for a lot of Western societies. But in places where they don't value or they don't necessarily pursue financial success as the end all be it all, they tend to be happier because they tend to focus on community, and people eat together, people live together. They're very communal versus like in an individualistic society. So the anxiety, depression tends not to really exist in certain cultures. So these are things that are just things, facts of life and the world that we live in. So the things that we experience in life tend to leave us in certain situations. And for me, that was a change in terms of like different cultures. So when people say culture shock, that was probably like I was going through culture shock right at that time. And the shock, I didn't understand it. Like when people say like, oh yeah, this is like a, I didn't have words for it to even understand what it was. Right. I still had friends, but I also realized that my own reality was different from my friends' reality. It was all different. So some of the things they could relate, but some of the things they couldn't relate because my experience was unique. And because the experiences were unique, I found myself sort of like in a place where I was just the only one that was just going through what I was going through. Because even like, my family wouldn't understand because they're not in the environment, they're not in the situation. My friends also wouldn't understand because some of them were not necessarily running a business at the same time as they were going to school at the same time. So, and then the other people that were also running a business, they were not necessarily international students as well at the same time. So the experiences were sort of like some of them were shared, some of them were not shared. So it's kind of like in this weird place where my own experience was very unique to myself. So anyway, that was the challenge. And then, obviously like a few more people started, following and also doing the same thing that I was doing. But me being the first person to walk that path was challenging. And I didn't understand the challenges that I was facing at the same time. So for me, I only managed to figure it out through journaling, through understanding like, okay, my environment is different. Okay, the experiences that I'm going through are different from everyone else around me. Okay, what kind of support do I need? Right. So so in my mind, I didn't even think that, okay, there's something called depression. Like depression is like, anxiety. Those are things that even now, till this day, I believe that for me personally, that is for me, right? I wouldn't go on like any sort of like path to take drugs or anything like that or resort to anything that's destructive, but I would actually focus on facing the battle, facing the challenge head on and facing it. And yes, it could take time, but I would write it down. I would write it down. Like I'm like, boom, write it down. Because by doing that, it helped me understand so much about the world. It helped my faith grow stronger. It helped me realize where my values lie. Like my own values, not like passed on values, not passed on faith from parents or friends or anyone else. It's not secondhand faith. It's not secondhand values, but it's me personally as a person, my own identity. I had to rewrite my identity, rewrite who I am, rewrite my story, the things that I believe in, the things that I want to achieve in life. I had to rewrite them. And one of the things is I read like my mission there was, like with the faith part, like, okay, I want to help people. But my question was always like, okay, I think like things like business can be very useful and powerful ways to help people because a lot of things in life require resources. So I think business is a way to do it. And it means that you have a business that directly supports people, not necessarily always like throwing money at people, but you have businesses that support people in that way, in that area. And that also allows people to be rewarded and you keep on growing the business and you allow other people to enter the business and you can employ people. That's one of the things that I actually enjoy the most is, employing people, leading people and seeing them being able to take care of themselves. And those are things that I personally I was like, wow, okay, like this is a blessing. Like that is one of the things that I'm most grateful for is just helping people with, employment, for example. And that was something that I think to me again like that's the stuff that I enjoy. And for for now the challenge that I always had, and this is part of like how I've changed the content on the channel as well. Like even if I have like different themes for each day, like I'm like, okay, nutrition, fitness, recovery, and we're talking about faith. Because part of it was like, okay, I always think about this. I'm like, okay, so you want to do something with faith, you want to do something with fitness, you want to do something with like, let's say, finance to help people with finances. Okay, how do you do that? Right. And I'm like, okay, maybe because the idea is you come up with ideas like, okay, maybe if I do one thing first, I do fitness, I help people with fitness, and then later on when I'm like 50, 60, then I'll start something to do with faith. But one of the things I realized, which was funny, was that, when it comes to business, businesses are hard to build. Businesses are some of the hardest things to build, and they take time. They take time. They could take 5 years, 10 years, could take 15 years to build. And for you to be able to do that, who knows, like in 50 years, like in 50, yeah, 50 years, hopefully, by the grace of God, in 50 years, I'll be here. But I can't wait. Also realize that I don't have time to wait. And even going back to scripture, reading like, okay, Christ actually started his ministry when he was much younger. And he helped people in so many ways, not just spiritually, but physically. He was healing people. He was helping people in so many ways. But it was under his ministry's one ministry. And for me, like I'm not saying like I'm creating a ministry. Like this is not like I mean, in some ways, spiritually, yes, it is a ministry, but I'm not saying like a church. Like I'm not like a church where you have like a pastor. I enjoy this stuff, but I realize that for me, I have to just start now as well. Like that's what we're supposed to do. Just live being honest with yourself, with the things that you want to achieve in life. So you start now. Even if I do it small, it doesn't have to be like big, right? Even if I help 15, 20 people, 30 people, that's great. That is great. Right. So, but the goal is to start now. is to start where you are. But for you to understand like the things that you want to do, it's not a thing of waiting for, 50 years from now and then you do it. Sometimes you just have to get started and just start doing it. Even if you're taking baby steps, but you want to move in alignment with your purpose, with your mission, with what God has already given you. Everything else comes with it. And your life becomes more aligned because sometimes we tend to sort of like separate ourselves from the work that we do and from our lives and from our mission and the things that we feel like, okay, this is what God is pulling us to do. Sometimes we're disconnected. And that's something that I think a lot of people need to realize that they don't have to wait until the perfect time because the perfect time never comes. It's a cliche, but it's true. You just have to start. Perfection won't get you there. You just have to start. But the first part is in order for you to be able to do that, you have to understand where you're trying to go, the vision, the focus. Because once you do that, your mental clarity, the stress, the load that you hold, especially when you live multiple lives, your brain is always trying to process information, and your brain is not meant to be holding memories and also processing information at the same time. But things that are like memories and stuff, like let's say even if it's your goals, you write it down, and there's studies that show that the people that write down their goals are more likely to achieve their goals than people who actually just keep it in their minds. Because our minds sometimes get cluttered and we have emotions that we feel that sort of change, up and down. We go up and down. But if you have a consistent place where you just put it down, no feelings attached to it, you're not judging anything, but you just put it down, it helps to remove the mental load and it helps to regulate your emotions because you're removing some of the things that make you feel anxious or make you feel depressed and you put it down on a page in a book and then you put it away. You tuck it away. You put it to the side.